On to Canada now, where that country's communications spy chief says his agency's work is legal in the wake of reports that it eavesdropped on Brazil's mining and energy ministry. John Forster says everything his agency does in terms of foreign intelligence follows Canadian law. He says Canadians are not targeted by the espionage activities either at home or abroad. Last week, Brazilian TV station Globo revealed that Canada carried out industrial espionage operations against the Latin American country. The Globo report was based on classified documents leaked by U.S. whistleblower Edward Snowden. Well, to get the latest on that, we're now joined by Joshua Blakeney, Press TV's correspondent, who's joining us live now from Calgary. Now, Joshua, John Forster has made this claim that his agency acts within Canadian law. So does Canadian law essentially allow for industrial espionage?
No, and to say that you're abiding by Canadian law when you're operating against a foreign country in the international arena is an irrelevance. The point is, was what Canada's intelligence agency is accused of doing consistent with international law? Because obviously Brazil is a foreign country, Brazil has Brazilian laws, and one byproduct of the globalization of capitalism in recent years has been a whole slew of international legislation pertaining to commerce and trade. And is Canada's government abiding by international trade law when it allows its intelligence agency to spy on an energy ministry that's tendering contracts for oil contracts? Because, of course, in 2007, Brazil discovered its largest ever deposit of oil, and it realized it needed sophisticated oil companies from around the world to come and help them develop this. And they've been tendering contracts, and many Chinese companies and Malaysian companies have been bidding on these contracts. And I think that, obviously in the Cold War, US oil companies and Canadian oil companies were able to subjugate Latin America and get sweet deals in terms of developing resources without having to hand over very many royalties to the governments of Latin America. But since the Great Awakening of the past decade, Latin America is beginning to assert independence and sovereignty over its resources. And in the Cold War, many a leader was assassinated for doing just that. And Brazil is intending to use Brazilian resources to better the Brazilian people. In terms of military purchases, recently we've seen Brazil buying, Russian-made weapons and Chinese-made weapons. They're not like a country like Argentina that has no strong military. Brazil is militarizing, and Brazil is a resource-rich country. Of course, Canada itself is a resource-rich country, and maybe also wanting to peek into Brazil's internal affairs with the concern that Brazil might be able to have more influence over the United States. Currently, Canada and its kind of Israeli puppet masters are able to influence the United States greatly due to the fact that Canada has the third largest oil reserves in the world, and the US needs that oil. So Canada may also be concerned that they would lose some leverage over the United States by having a rising Brazilian powerhouse. So there's many incentives for Canada to spy on the Brazilian Ministry of Energy. I think one thing that also should be noted is that Canada's intelligence agencies are constantly telling us that they need a greater budget to protect us from this invisible enemy of Al-Qaeda. And many people are skeptical of this claim because in Canada you're more likely to die from lightning than from terrorism. But it turns out that they're actually utilizing that taxpayer money to sort of act as shills for energy companies. I mean, this would be bad enough if the big oil companies had paid for this intelligence operation, but it's ordinary Canadians who have paid this, people who are working hard, paying their taxes, and it's being used to do kind of industrial espionage, not for the benefit of the Canadian people who pay the salaries of the intelligence agents, but rather for the benefit of energy companies. So I think many Canadians are beginning to ask what's going on and ask why Canada, that could be a peaceful country, could have good relations with the whole world, is constantly antagonizing countries like Iran, Venezuela, and now Brazil. What's in the Canadian national interest to be doing this, other than Canada yet again acting as a junior partner in imperialism, wanting to subjugate countries like Brazil that are rising, wanting to subjugate countries
Okay, Joshua,
like Iran.
I do apologize, but I will have to cut you off. But of course, we do appreciate that. That was Joshua Blakeney speaking just live from Calgary. Elsewhere, Bahrainis have once again held demonstrations in support of their jailed leaders and political activists.